Hello and welcome back to Analog Comics. I hope you had a great Christmas and New Year's Eve, and now we are already on 2023. This is the 2nd of January now that I'm filming this. Today I'm going to talk about this one. I just finished one of the latest installments of the Hellboy saga, the Sword of Hyperborea, and I immediately knew that I have to say something about it. And in case you are new to the Hellboy, meaning that you haven't read any of this, or you have just started, but you are still in the beginning part of the massive saga, I have a word of warning about this book. I'm not going to do any spoilers. I'm very careful about them. Quick word about the ending of 2022. I was supposed to do my best reads list for 2022, but for certain reasons I didn't do that. There are even rumors circulating that I got so hooked up on God of War Ragnarok video game that I just kind of forgot it or didn't have time to do that. Now, I'm not saying that that didn't happen, but I'm not saying that it happened either. However, Ragnarok itself is a very good jumping point to the Sword of Hyperborea. You see, the last installment of the Hellboy saga, that one core story, it ended up in this book, PPRD, The Devil You Know, and it was called The Ragnarok. One of the artists here was Lawrence Campbell, and he is the kind of mastermind behind this book. Those of you who are familiar with the Hellboy saga, the history of it, then you are familiar with the Sword of Hyperborea. But the original Hellboy saga only showed some of its past, like a past that was long time ago, and then the current times. And so Lawrence Campbell started to think what happened there between. And that is the story of this book. So if you're not familiar with this sword, it's one of those most important objects or relics within the Hellboy story, although it comes in quite late in the complete saga. But it is one of the coolest weapons and objects in the story. And it's wielded by a person called Howard, and he's quite effective with it. Let's first take a look at the physical book, and then I'll give you that warning I promised. The Sword of Hyperborea, it's a trade paperback, but in hardcover. I didn't find a soft cover. I would have bought soft cover if it was more easily available, but Mike Mignola, he kind of knows how to take your money. I'm okay with it. I have few of these books here and they actually continue here, so I'm committed. It's okay. And this is published by Dark Horse, and this collects the single issues from 1 to 4. Because of the way this story is told, I'm going to be very careful of what I show you and what I don't show you. So basically it might be just a few panels here and there. So let's see what's inside, and I'll see when I have to cut it. Yeah, there's the cover, blank pages. You have the name of the book, then a cool one-page picture, creators. It's script by Mike Mignola and Rob Williams. They kind of co-wrote the whole thing. I think Mike Mignola was more like just the voice behind, kind of guiding the thing, and Rob Williams did the actual writing. Lawrence Campbell doing the art, which is great. It fits this very well. And colors by Quinton Winter and letters by Clem Robbins. And from the text that is here, I can see that these people have already worked quite many times in the past, so it was a very nice project for them. The foreword is by Lawrence Campbell, the artist, and the writer Rob Williams. And then deeper into the book. This is one of the panels in the book. It's just a cool cover to start the story, get you in the mood. There's a mammoth behind, and some fighting monsters, and then we have the Howard staring. He's asking a question here, which I won't show you. And then in the next page we can see that there's Liz Sherman also in the scene. That's the back cover, and before I show you any panels inside, I'll just show you what's in the back of the book. We have the list of Hellboy books. I love this list. They just make me want to buy everything, but I have everything. And also by Mike Mignola, there are the PPRD and other books that are related or connected to the big story arc. Then we have covers. Some of them are main covers and variants, which I'm not that familiar of because it's not a European thing. I don't really care about the variant covers. And then as usual, the creators talk about how they came up with the pages, panels, covers, the ideas. They talk about the monsters, because there's always monsters in the Mignola stories. What are the origins of those monsters? Like here's one that they took from some old Mignola sketchbook. And then comes a page I cannot show you because the 3 of the last pages in this book, they are actually placed in a timeline after the last pages on the BPRD Ragnarok that I just showed you in the beginning of the video. That was pretty cool. But now to the warning for those who are just beginning the Hellboy or who have not read it at all. Do not buy this book yet. This will spoil a lot of things. Well, there's 2 things. First of all, I don't think that you'll get the story. It'll feel just a bit like random things happening here and there, and the timeline keeps jumping, sometimes very long jumps. And as you are missing the context of the Sword of Hyperborea, I don't think you'll enjoy this. But it also, as I said, it reveals way too much of the main story. So I want to be very clear with this. If you don't know how the Hellboy saga ends, don't buy this. Don't spoil the fun, because it is a fun and great ending to the series. And as I mentioned about the jumping, how the timeline jumps here and there quite far away to the future in some points, it's because this is the story of the Sword of Hyperborea, not the ones who carry it. Those who have read the whole Hellboy saga, you know that it shows you glimpses of the history of the sword, but it's really far back. And this fills in how it got there, where it was found. And it means that the story is kind of jumpy, it kind of nudges forward suddenly a really long time periods. But it's still interesting because, as I said, the sword is one of those most interesting objects in the storyline. There are certain parts that are more like a story. There's a character seeing things, experiencing things, and you are more in the story of that character too. But then the stories, how they end, they always remind you that those people were not the story. It's the sword. And this left me feeling that this is more like a document. It's like documented history rather than a told story. But don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed this one because it's one of those things that Mike Mignola sometimes does. He has already told the big story arc, but he still keeps, years after it has finished, he keeps adding info to the place, some places that you didn't know even could have more info, but he finds the cracks where to insert a story. Well, in this case, it was actually the artist that found the story as he was thinking about this while he was drawing the last part of the Devil in All, the Ragnarok. So I'm kind of talking to 2 different audiences here. There are those who know the whole thing. They know how it starts and how it ends, and that's all fine. Then you're kind of safe. You can read whatever additional stories and they will not spoil anything. They would just add to the lore. But then there are those who have not read anything or just started. And I a bit envy you because I'd like to be in that position now also. Like to experience this for the first time. But you know, that's the way it goes. You can only have that fun once. Anyway, if you are looking for comic books about Hellboy universe, what I suggest is that you just follow the main storyline. If you want to read and experience the whole saga, my advice would be to start from the beginning, just Google what's out there and go in a way chronologically of the main story. And when you start Googling, you will also find out that there are lots of these one-off books about certain characters in the main storyline. And I advise you to wait until they are at least introduced in the main story arc. So once you're familiar in the main story arc with those characters, then it's safer to jump to the books of their characters. There are certain books that are just for those characters, kind of backgrounds, the beginnings and so on. But be aware of these additional stories of these characters. And well, Sword of Hyperborea is one of the characters in a way in this story. You don't have to read them ever to enjoy the main storyline. But that's all I'm going to say about it. And I knew right away after I finished reading it that I have to at least warn those who are into Hellboy and not yet in the finish line, see what I did there. And it may be that I have to do these a bit warning videos even more often now because the main timeline is already finished. I've seen quite many comic books that happen in the Hellboy universe waiting for release. So there'll be lots of stories. So we got 2023 started with a magical sword. Not a bad thing. Thanks for being here, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.